Hi friend, this is your Dr. Iqbal and you are watching YouTube channel Vela Baba. Today I will be talking about Agri-Food Immigration Pilot Project. This is a new project which recently started and accepting the applications. And I will be covering what is the Agri-Food Immigration Pilot Project and what are its eligibility requirements that include education, language proficiency, work experience, and eligible NAICS and NOC codes. NAICS and NOC combination. Your funding requirement, job offer. What the documents you would be required to apply, police certificate requirements, and what forms are to be submitted by your employer or principal applicant. So let's dive into our today's video of Basically, Canada encourages applications for permanent residence from people with abilities, education, and work experience that will contribute to the Canadian economy. The Agri-Food Immigration Pilot is an economic class program which provides a pathway to permanent residence for workers with full-time, non-seasonal in Canada work experience in certain agriculture and agri-food industry. You may apply through the Agri-Food Immigration Pilot if you meet the eligibility requirement and plan to settle permanently in the Canada, but outside of Quebec province. The eligibility requirements include education, language proficiency, work experience, eligible NAIC and NOC combinations, job offer, and funding requirement. Now, talking about the eligibility requirement, number one is education. You must have high school diploma, post-secondary certificate or degree that is valid and equal to Canadian equivalent, or if you did not complete your studies in Canada, you will need an educational credential assessment to show that your studies are equal to a Canadian secondary or post-secondary certificate, diploma, or degree. Your ECA report must be less than 5 years old on the date your application is received by the IRCC. Next is your language proficiency. You must meet the minimum language requirement, which is known as Canadian Language Benchmark CLB for listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So the minimum requirement for this project is CLB 4. You will need to submit CLB IELTS score test original results with your application. If you have already done language testing, your results must not be more than 2 years old on the date your application is received. The next requirement is your work experience. Your work experience should be within the last 3 years. You have accumulated at least 1 year, which is 1,560 hours, full-time, non-seasonal work experience in Canada under a valid work permit in one or more eligible combinations of National Occupational Classification, which is known as NOC, and North American Industry Classification System, which is known as NAICS. Your work experience must have been authorized on a work permit issued on the basis of a labor market impact assessment with a duration of at least 12 months. You have performed the actions in the lead statement of the NOC. You have performed a substantial number of main duties of NOC, including all the essential duties. Your work experience must have been for paid work, volunteer work, or unpaid internship do not count. Any periods of self-employment or unauthorized work will not be included when calculating the period of qualifying work experience. Friends, these are eligible NAICS and NOC combinations. These are the NAICS and NOC which are displayed for you. You may like to pause the video to read it out, or you can take a screenshot of this. Now let's talk about the job offer, which is equally important and essential requirement. You must have a valid job offer that is from your employer whose primary business activities are in the eligible industry of NAICS combination, full-time and non-seasonal, for an employment location that must be out of the Quebec province. IRCC will review the main duties and principal business activities shown in your job offer to make sure that it meets the occupational and industry requirement of the program. You must submit job offer on the prescribed form, which is IMM 0115, which is Agri-Food Immigration Pilot with your application. Your employer must complete this form and send you a copy, which must be included with your application. You must read and sign the declaration at the bottom of the form. Some of the temporary resident, if you are in Canada, you must maintain your temporary resident status during the processing of your application for permanent residence. And if you're working in Canada, you must show that you meet the employment requirement of the job you are offered. These may include education, training, or other qualification in the NOC description. Now, something about fund. Please note that the Government of Canada does not provide financial support to new immigrants. Unless you are already working in Canada and that work is authorized, you must prove that you have enough money to support your family and yourself after you arrive in Canada. You must submit proof with your application to show that you have enough money to support yourself and your family after you arrive in Canada. This proof should be in the shape of current account statements, certification letter from the bank, proof of saving balance, deposit statements. You cannot borrow this money from any other person. You must be able to use this money to pay the cost of living for your family. Now, the amount of money you need to support your family is set by the size of your family. Also, double check IRCC website, which is updated on yearly basis as far as the amount of funding requirement is concerned. Number of the family members versus Canadian dollar you require is, if you have only one member, you would need to show Canadian dollar 12,960. If you have two members, you have to show 16,135 Canadian dollar. And if you have three family members, you have to show 19,836. And the list goes. You can take screenshot of this table. And for each additional family member, you have to add 3,492 Canadian dollar. If you arrive in Canada with an amount greater or equal to Canadian dollar 10,000 or its equivalent in foreign currency, you must tell this to the Canadian Border Service Agency officer. These funds could be in the form of cash, security in bearer forms, for example, stocks, bonds, debentures, treasury bills, or bankers' draft checks, traveler checks, or money order. This is the document checklist, which is known as IMM 0116. This is the most important checklist of all those documents which you would be needing to submit. And this should be used as a reference. If you do not provide all the requested information and the document from the checklist, your application will be returned. And this will cause you loss of your time and money. So take your time, complete all the formalities, all the documents, all the forms as per the requirement. There is a guideline, clause by clause, suggesting and advising you how to fill these forms So you should have the checklist and then the guide. The link of both are in the description so you can check it out. If your documents are not in English or French, you should get them translated and attach an affidavit from the person who completed the translation and a certified copy of the original document. Please note that the translation must not be done by yourself or the applicant themselves, nor by an applicant parent, guardian, sibling, spouse, common law partner, conjugal partner, grandparents, child, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, or first cousin. If the translation is not done by the certified translator, you must submit an affidavit swearing to the accuracy of translation and the language proficiency of the translator. The affidavit must be sworn in the presence of, if you are in Canada, a notary public, a commissioner of oaths, a commissioner of taking affidavits. Authority to certify varies from province and territory. Consult your local provincial or territorial authorities. And if you are outside Canada, then a notary public or the authority to administer oath varies from a notary public or authority to administer oaths vary by country. Consult your local authorities. Now coming to the next important variable, which is police certificate. If you and your family members are 18 years of age and older and are not permanent residents or Canadian citizen, you must provide a valid police certificate for any country other than Canada in which you spent 6 or more months since the age of 18. If the original certificate is not in English, you must get its translation, and that translation must be done by the authorized translator. You must then include both police certificate and the original copy of attestation. Now there are certain forms which are to be filled out by your employer. Form IMM 0115, which is an offer of employment to foreign national in the Agri-Food Immigration Pilot, should be filled out and submitted by your employer. You as an employee or a principal applicant must sign Declaration of Employee section. This is the list of forms that you as a principal applicant need to fill them out and submit with your application. You can pause this video to take screenshot. Generate form for Canada, additional dependent declaration, Schedule A, which is background declaration, offer of employment to a foreign national, Agri-Food Immigration Pilot Schedule 1, additional family information, supplementary information, separation declaration for minors traveling to Canada, statutory declaration of common law union, document checklist, and use of representative form if it applies to you. Friends, if you need more space, get the printout out of this form and fill that particular section and attach with your form. Last but not the least, you have to complete all the sections in the application form, and you must answer all the questions on the application form unless indicated otherwise. Download these forms and fill them on your computer. The IMM 0008 is a generic application form to be filled by principal applicant, and this should be validated with a 2D bar code. And make sure that you properly validated your answers with filling out this form. The 2D bar codes are properly generated. If the 2D bar codes are missing or can't be machine read for any reason, the application will be returned without being processed. You have the option to save the half-filled application forms, and later you can complete them. So friend, with this, our today video comes to an end. Take care of yourself. See you next video. Till then, bye-bye.